Salam እንደምን ናችሁ የኢቢኤስ ስፖርት አሜሪካ ፕሮግራም ተጀመረ። I'm Golla, Washington Redskins reporter, and you're watching EBS Sport America. I'll be with you today.
በመከታተል ላይ የምትገኙት የኢቢኤስ ስፖርት አሜሪካ ዝግጅታችን ነው ተመልካቾቻችን። ዛሬ አንድ ለየት ያለ እንግዳ ይዘንላችሁ ቀርበናል። እንግዳችን ፍሬወይኒ ጎላ ትባላለች። በዚህ በአሜሪካን የዋሽንግተን ሬድስኪንስ የስፖርት ጋዜጠኛ ነች። በተለይ የዚህ ፉትቦል ጋር በተያያዘ በርካታ ፕሮግራሞችን በመስራት ነው በዚህ በሰሜን አሜሪካ የምትታወቀው። ከሷ ጋር ቆይታ እናደርጋለን። በተከታታይ ፕሮግራሞች ከዚህ በፊት ስለ አሜሪካ እግር ኳስ አንዳንድ ነገሮችን ለመግለጽ ሞክረናል። ከዚህ ጋር ተያይዞ ፍሬ አንዳንድ ነገሮችን ታነሳልናለች።
Joining me is Alfred Morris. Alfred, you guys have the St. Louis Rams coming in this week. How important is that the offense get going early so that you don't play from behind?
It's very important. They have a very impressive...
Speaking of it happening so fast, it has actually been an incredible journey for you. Talk about that.
Yeah, I had a pretty good college...
Thank you for coming to EBS studio.
Thank you so much for having me.
Let's start from this. Tell us a little bit about Frey.
Well, I am 26 years old. I picked up and moved to New York when I was about 22 years old. So I grew up in Ohio with my family, a family of 8 kids. My parents came to the United States in 1990, so when I was 2. I grew up here in America. So people say that I'm Americanized, but I am still very much intact with my culture. I'm an Ethiopian American, and it's a large part of who I am and why I am where I am today. I've been able to make ground because of the values that my parents have instilled in me. So I went to school. After school, I figured out what I wanted to do. Didn't know exactly what it was, but I knew that there was a path there for me, and I wasn't afraid to pick up and go. And I started my journey when I picked up and moved to New York a few years ago. And through there, I didn't exactly know what I wanted to do, but I knew it was something media-based. So I decided to kind of get out there and freelance a little bit and not be afraid to take chances and not be held back by the income part of it. So I found a way to kind of keep myself afloat financially and then allow myself to do what I wanted to do during the day so that I could make way for me to be here today. I ended up meeting someone important that helped me get to where I am today with the Washington Redskins. So now I am a DCer.
So you are reporting for the Washington Redskins now. We all know that here in the Washington, here in the United States. But how could you have this attachment, especially with American football, rather than any other sports?
Well, I was first introduced to American football. I didn't grow up watching soccer because soccer has never been that huge here in America, even though it is picking up steam here and it's still considered the international sport. But here in America, people love football. You know, it's a cultural thing that they've attached themselves to. So I became a part of that when I was young. And it wasn't through my own doing it first. It was a little bit forced upon me. I grew up in with 8 siblings and 6 sisters, 2 brothers, and somehow they always dominated and controlled the television. We had 1 in the household.
Okay.
So I would have been perfectly fine with just sitting back watching soap operas and all those other things that females like to do, and I still do that today. But my brothers took control of the TV, kind of forced me to watch sports, hated it at first. So I was a little bit of a rebel there. I kind of went against every team that they loved. And through time, though, watching the sport, sitting back and watching it, I really formed an attachment with it because I got to understand it deeper than what it was from the outside looking in, which is just a physical sport where guys are just macho, hitting each other. There's so much more than that, you know, about the sport. And once you understand that, you are able to form an attachment and become a part of a society and a culture that really relishes this type of competitive instinct. So over the years, I formed that attachment, and it never left me since then. I still watch football, I still watch sports, and I love it.
Do you watch soccer?
I am just now getting into soccer. I watched the World Cup. I loved it. To me, sports across the board has that competitive nature to it that anyone can form an attachment to there. So if you love football, if you love basketball, there's no reason why you can't love all these other different type of sports, because in its basic form, it is competition, and I enjoy that part of it.
As you know, most Ethiopians do love soccer than American football. So just let's start from the origin of football, and just let's see how it started in the United States.
Well, American football actually derived from early versions of rugby, which is basic form was pretty much just guys carrying the ball over a line, trying to gain territory on their opponents, and kicking the ball through a goal. And we still have those basic forms still in the game today. But over time, there was a man named Walter Camp, who is now considered the father of American football, who helped advance the game by implementing new rules to it, very important rules that we still see today, two of which are basic, the line of scrimmage and down and distance, which is the very basic rules of the game, and we'll get into that a little bit more. Popular within the American culture. Not as much as the NFL now, but it is very popular. They introduced the tradition of rivalries, and they introduced bowl games, which we still see in college football today. And it really kind of captivated the competitive instinct of Americans, which is why it appeals so much to Americans today. And after that, the NFL was created in the 1920s and is now considered the National League. It's now considered the National Football League and the professional form of the football. So you see young kids getting into football, the sport of football, the nature of football at a very young age, all having hopes at some point of making it to the NFL and being professional football players. So it's a game that has been able to move forward and advance over the years, and every year it gains popularity. It's now the most popular sport in America, and is considered the American sport. So
let's come to the rules and regulations. Like when we see like audience or fun like Ethiopians, when we see the game, like it has
just very physical,
very
right?
physical contact. So
it's hard to miss that part.
Yeah, how is people enjoying that?
You know, I think when we talk about the American culture, football kind of embodies the American culture. There's a toughness and there's a grit. You got guys lining up opposite of each other, being completely disciplined before that ball will snap. But once that ball is snapped, all heck breaks loose. And guys hit each other hard. And the toughness of it really embodies the fact that Americans think that being better than the next person means that you have to gain ground on that next person. So in a sense, it is a mentality, a physical mentality, a competitive instinct that Americans relish about the sport, but it's so much more than that. In order to understand football, you've got to be able to kind of take a seat back, take in the game, understand the complexities of the game. There are formations that go into the game. It isn't just about being stronger and bigger than your opponent, because you can be bigger and stronger, but if you don't know how to use skill, how to use tactic, how to use strategies to gain ground on your opponent, then you're not going to win. There are teams, there are guys out there who, from a purely talent standpoint, you look at them and you say, oh, they're going to win. But there's a reason why every Sunday they play the game on the field, because anything can happen on any given Sunday, which is what they say in football.
How many players are playing at a time on the field? And I have heard a lot of times about touchdown.
Yeah.
And what does that mean?
So there's a 53-man roster. Every team has a 53-man roster, but at any given time, there can only be men on the defensive side, and they're pretty much going at it, trying to gain ground. The offense's job is to try to advance the ball down the field into their opponent's territory. And the defense's job is to push back and try to keep the offense from advancing the ball and scoring the ball. Now, when you score, there's two types of ways that you can score. There's a touchdown that's worth 6 points. There's two end zones, an end zone for your opponent and an end zone for you. When your opponent scores on your end zone, they get 6 points. If your opponent gets deep enough into field position, they can choose to continue to try to drive the ball down the field, or they can take a field goal, which is worth 3 points. And that's the kicking part. People love to say that there's no reason why it should be called football because they don't kick the ball, but actually it's a very, you can try to go for it all and go for a touchdown, which is worth 6 points.
ተመልካቾቻችን በመከታተል ላይ የምትገኙት የኢቢኤስ ስፖርት አሜሪካ ዝግጅታችን ነው። ፕሮግራማችን አሁንም ይቀጥላል። ከፍሪ ጋር ያደረግነው ቆይታ ካፍታ ቆይታ በኋላ እንመለሳለን። አብራችሁን ቆዩ።
የኢቢኤስ ስፖርት አሜሪካ ዛሬ ከኢቢኤስ ስቱዲዮ ውጪ በዚህ በሜሪላንድ በሚገኘው የሬድስኪን ስታዲየም በፌዴክስ ስታዲየም ይገኛል።
ተመልካቾቻችን እንደምትመለከቱት የግዙፍ ስታዲየም የፌዴክስ ስታዲየም ነው። የዋሽንግተን ሬድስኪን በዲሲ ሜትሮፖሊታን ኤሪያ የተመሰረተ አንጋፋ ትልቅ ክለብ ነው። የአሜሪካን ፉትቦል ትልቁን ተመልካች በማስተናገድ የሚታወቅ ስታዲየም ነው። የትልልቅ እግር ኳስ ውድድሮችን ማስተናግዷል። ማንቸስተር ዩናይትድ እና ኢንተር ሚላን እዚህ ተጫውተዋል። ባለፈው 0-0 ነው የወጡት የፕሪማች ውድድራቸውን። ከዚህ በፊት የተለያዩ ክለቦች እየመጡ እዚህ ነው ውድድራቸውን ያደርጋሉ። በጣም እጅግ በጣም ግዙፍ ነው። ዛሬ አሁን ባለው አቅም ወደ 79000 ተመልካቾችን ያስተናግዳል። እንግዲህ ይሄ እግር ኳስ አይደለም። የአሜሪካን ፉትቦል እና የአሜሪካ ደጋፊዎች እንዴት ነው የሚለውን የተወሰነ ነገር ለናንተ ለማካፈል ነው እዚህ የተገኘ ነው። ያው ዳንኤል እንደገለጽከው ከስቱዲዮ እንዲሁም ደግሞ ከስቱዲዮ ውጪ ያልን ነው የዛሬውን ፕሮግራም ወደ እናንተ የምናደርሰው። ተመልካቾቻችን እስከ ዝግጅታችን ፍጻሜ አብራችሁን እንድትቆዩ እንጋብዛለን። በድጋሚ አብራችሁን ቆዩ።
To be decided, great expectations. Kaepernick to throw it, or willing. Kaepernick, long strides, stutter step move. Kaepernick breaking to the clear. Nobody will catch Kaepernick. 90 yards.
ተመልካቾቻችን እንግዲህ ቀደም ብለን እንደገለጽነው በሬድስኪንስ እና በፊላዴልፊያ ኤግልስ መካከል የሚደረገው ጨዋታ በአመት ውስጥ ከሚደረጉት ማለትም ሬድስኪንስ በአመት ውስጥ ከሚያደርጋቸው የአሜሪካን ፉትቦል ጨዋታዎች መካከል ትልቅ ከሚባሉት ሁለተኛው ጨዋታ ነው ሚሊ የአመቱ ውድድር መዝጊያም ነው። የዚህ የአሜሪካን ፉትቦል እንግዲህ ሬድስኪን የመጨረሻውን ጨዋታ የሚያደርገው በመጪው ሳምንት ነው። ከዳላሱ ካውቦይስ ጋር ነው የሚያደርገው ይሄን ጨዋታ። በጣም በታሪክ ተቀናቃኝ የሚባሉት እንዴት ሊገለጽ ይችላል? አሁን ያየውን ስሜት ቀደም ሲል ያናገር
በነገራችን ላይ ትኬቶች ተሽጠው አልቀዋል። ተሽጠው ያለቁት ገና ውድድር ከመጀመሩ በፊት ነው። መጀመሪያ ተመልካቾች የሚገዙት የካውቦይስ እና የሬድስኪንን ነው። ታሪካዊ ተቀናቃኞች ናቸው። ሬድስኪን ጨዋታዎችን በሙሉ ቢሸነፍ ምንም ማለት ላይሆን ይችላል። በካውቦይስ መሸነፍ ግን የክብር ጉዳይ ነው። ስለዚህ ይሄ በጣም ትልቅ ደርቢ የምትለው ነው። በርግጥ አንድ ከተማ ቡድኖች አይደሉም።
ለማጉላት በደንብ ለማሳየት ወደ እግር ኳሱ እንመለስና በዓለም ላይ ከሚታወቁት ተቀናቃይ ከሚባሉት ቡድኖች እንደ ሪያል ማድሪድ እና ባርሴሎና ወደ ጣሊያን ስንሄድ እንደ ሁለቱ ሚላን ኢንተር ሚላን እና ኤሲ ሚላን ፎካካሪን ወይም ተቀናቃኝን ማሸነፍ ያው ዋንጫ እንደማሸነፍ ያለው
እንደማንሳት ነው ያ ነውና ዳኒ ቅዝቃዜው እጅግ በጣም እየጨመረ ነው። ግላቭ እንግዲህ አላደረግንም። ምናልባት ግላቭ መፈለግ ይኖርብናል ብዬ አስባለሁ።
አሁንም ዞር እያልን ያሉትን ሁኔታዎች እየቃኘን ወደ እናንተ እናደርሳለን። አብራችሁ እንድትቆዩ በድጋሚ እንጋብዛለን።
Redskins, go Skins, beat the Eagles. Send them out their misery today. You know, do your duty today, and then next week, take off for the rest of the season.
All right. Thank you. Good luck.
RG3's gonna kill it!
I'm saying this, Mark Sanchez might ruin it, but the Eagles are going to win. Oh. Our defense is going to kill. Oh, the Redskins are horrible. They're the worst team in the NFL. I don't care what the record says, they're still the worst team ever. I'll tell you this right now. Rick Cheney is a quote.
We're going to win this one. We own this one. The Eagles are not going to fly tonight.
I hope he's wrong. I hope he's wrong. All right, so the Eagles got 9 wins, 3 times as many. This will be easy pickings. Easy pickings.
Okay. Good luck.
Michael Kendricks, 3 sacks tonight.
ተመልካቾቻችን የኢቢኤስ ስፖርት አሜሪካ አሁንም በዚህ በሜሪላንድ በሬድስኪንስ የፌዴክስ ስቴዲየም በር ላይ ነው የምንገኘው። ይህ የምትመለከቱት እንግዲህ የዋሽንግተን ሬድስኪንስ ዋናው የስቴዲየሙ የፌዴክስ ስቴዲየም መግቢያ ነው ማለት ነው።
እንደው ይሄ ውጭን ለማስቃኘት ይሄ ፓርኪንግ ኤሪያው ነው እንደምትመለከቱት እጅግ በጣም ሰፊ ነው። ይሄ እንግዲህ በአንዱ ሳይድ ብቻ ያለው ነው። ከጀርባው እንደዚህ እጅግ በጣም ቦታ አለ። ያ የፓርኪንግ ቦታ ነው። ውጪ መብላት ይቻላል፣ መጠጣት ይቻላል። የተለያዩ ቦታ ምግቦች፣ በርገሮች፣ ሳንድዊቾች ምናምን አሉ።
በርካታ የተለያዩ ተመልካቾችና ደጋፊዎች ራሳቸውን ወደ ጨዋታው ከመግባታቸው በፊት የሚመገቡበት የተለያዩ መጠጦች የሚወስዱበት ራሳቸውን የሚያዝናኑበት ነው። ሬድስኪንስ በዋናነት 3 ጊዜ በጣም ትልልቅ ውጤቶችን አስመዝግቧል። እንደ አውሮፓውያን አቆጣጠር በ1981 ዓመተ ምህረት የዚህ የናሽናል ፉትቦል ሊግ አሸናፊ ዋንጫ ባለቤት የሆነበት ነው። በ1987 ደግሞ ሁለተኛ በመሆን አጠናቋል። በ1991 እንደ አውሮፓውያን አቆጣጠር አሁንም በዚሁ በአሜሪካን ፉትቦል የናሽናል ፉትቦል ሊግ ውድድር ሶስተኛ በመሆን ያጠናቀቀበት በሬድስኪንስ ታሪክ በጣም የሚጠቀሱ ዋና ውጤቶች ናቸው። እንግዲህ ተመልካቾቻችን የአሜሪካን ፉትቦል የሚባለው ይሄ ነው። አሜሪካን ፉትቦል ይሄ በእግርም ይመታል፣ በአብዛኛው በእጅ ቅብብሎሽ የሚደረግ ትልቁ ፋይት የሚደረገው ይሄን በዚህ ኳስ ነው። እንግዲህ ሬድስኪንስ ይላል፣ የሬድስኪንስ ማሊያ ያለበት ነው። ስለ አሜሪካን ፉትቦል ወይም ደግሞ ስለዚህ ኳስ ምን ማለት ይቻላል?
እንግዲህ አሜሪካ ፉትቦል ተመልካቾቻችን እንደምትመለከቱት ነው። ክብ አይደለም፣ ኦቫል ሼፕ ነው ያለው። እንደዚህ ሞለል ያለ ቅርጽ ነው ያለው።
በጣም ቀላል ነው፣
እጅግ በጣም ቀላል ነው። በረጅም ነው የምትወረውረው ማለት ነው። እንግዲህ አይ ዶንት ኖ ሉክስ ዲፊካልት እንደዚህ አስቀምጠው አንዳንድ ጊዜም ይመቱታል።
ኪክ እንደ ቅጣት ምት
ተችዳውን የሚሉት ነገር አለ።
ተችዳውን ይሄን ይዞ አምልጦ እዛኛው ተቃራኒ ቡድን ጫፍ ላይ መድረስ ነው። ይሄን ኳስ ይዞ
የሰጠ ከተቃራኒ ቡድን ጀርባ ይችን ኳስ ማስቀመጥ ነው። ሶ ፉትቦል ማለት ለአሜሪካ እንግዲህ ይሄ ነው ማለት። ለማንኛውም በርካታ ነገሮችን እናደርሳቸዋለን። በተለይ የአሜሪካ ፉትቦል ምን ይመስላል ከዳኒ ጋር አብረን እንቆያለን። ከስቱዲዮ ልመልሳችሁና ከፍረወይኒ ጎላ ጋር ያደረግነውን ዝግጅት ተከታትለን እንመለሳለን።
ተመልካቾቻችን ከፍሪ ጋር ያደረግነው ቆይታ በተለይ በአሜሪካ ስፖርት ዙሪያ አሁንም በርካታ ልምዷን እንዲሁም ዕውቀቷን ያካፈለች ነው የምትገኘው። ፍሪ just to continue how is the position on the field, the position of the players, and good do they play? And I heard also about the quarterback. People keep saying the quarterback is good.
Yeah. So there are a lot of different positions in football, but the most important one is quarterback because he has the most responsibilities out of everybody on the field. Probably one of the most important positions in all of sports. But the quarterback's responsibility is to implement the offense. He's the one that starts the offense.
Oh, that's one person?
Yeah, it's just one person on the offensive side. When the guys are lined up, he's typically lined up under center. So there's a guy right under him whose responsibility is to snap him the ball. But before he snaps the ball, he hears cues at the line of scrimmage from the quarterback signaling that the ball should be snapped at that time. Once the ball is snapped, the quarterback has the ball in his hands, and he then has the option of doing 3 things. He can choose to keep the ball and run the ball. He can choose to hand the ball over to to someone else. It can be a receiver, but it typically is a running back, and that running back would then run the ball. Or he can choose to hold the ball, look down the field, look to the sides of the field, hopefully for a receiver or ball catcher, which can be anyone on the field that's an offensive player. The quarterback's job is to make sure that the offense is running and it's flowing. He's engineering the offense, so he's the one that calls the plays. So it's a very important part of football. It's a very important responsibility that one person has. And a lot of times you see teams that are pretty good in every other position, but if they don't have a quarterback that's able to implement the offense and run the offense effectively, it's not going to work out for them.
And the target is take the ball right behind the opponent's.
So the goal is, once the quarterback decides what he wants to do with the ball, if he chooses to hand the ball over to a running back, which is another player that plays behind the line of scrimmage, which is considered the backfield, closest to the quarterback. The running back's job is to then find a hole, maybe between tackles, maybe to the outside, find a hole so that he can advance the ball. He carries the ball until someone then brings him down and stops the play. That's the defense's job, is to try to stop the play by bringing the offensive player to the ground. If the quarterback decides to keep it himself, he can decide to keep it, run the ball as far as he can before someone brings him down. So the play continues to go until a defensive player brings an offensive player to the ground and stops the play. If he chooses to throw the ball, he can throw it to a running back who's on the outside. He can throw it to a receiver who's typically down the field. He can throw it to a tight end, another position. The ball is in play until there's an incomplete pass, until someone is brought down, or until the play is just dead. So those are the responsibilities of a quarterback. In order for a play to continue, the offense has to continue to make ground.
Let's proceed to the Washington Redskins. There is one thing that I realize, especially when there is a game between Redskins and any other team. I don't see people walking around like any other day. Everybody go to the stadium and support Redskins, especially in this area. And I had the same experience back home when Ethiopian national team played with another country national team. The same thing happened. But here, Redskins have a lot of supporters here. And can you tell us a little bit about Redskins?
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that, because the Redskins hold the record, or broken the record for NFL single season attendance 6 years in a row. So you can get a sense of how important this game of football is to the people of Washington and DC area. They love the Redskins. The fans are crazy about the Redskins. Win or lose, they are there in the stadium every Sunday supporting this team. The Redskins over the years have been a very storied franchise, the third most valued franchise in all of football, only after the Dallas Cowboys and the New England Patriots. They've won three Super Bowls, have made it to 5 Super Bowls. They have 6 conference championships, 10 division titles. So you see this is a team that's had a lot of success throughout the years. A lot of great players who have also played for them. This is an organization that is storied, an organization that has so much for fans to look forward to, so much for fans to celebrate. So the Redskins, one of the best organizations in all of football. And if you tune in, you'll see a lot about them. You know, and this organization has been responsible for having the first of a lot in the NFL. They've had the first band, first time you've seen cheerleaders on the sideline, first time you've seen a halftime show. And though they were the last team in the NFL to integrate African Americans onto the squad, they were the first team to have a black quarterback start and play in a Super Bowl. Doug Williams, the first black quarterback to be an MVP of the Super Bowl in 1988. So it's a great organization with a great history.
A lot of people consider American football as a culture of Americans. So how do you explain that?
Well, American football is one sport that Americans consider theirs. You see football in its international form, which is soccer. The world can enjoy that. Basketball, internationally, it is enjoyed by a lot of people. baseball here in the United States, it's huge, but over the last few years, football has been able to advance and even surpass baseball as the most popular sport in America. Again, it really embodies the toughness of Americans. It's not just about hitting, it's about being able to pull your chair up next to a guy that you don't know in a bar and really find that common ground, not because you know that person, but because you're either rooting against or you're rooting with that person. It's about feeling a sense of togetherness with someone, or feeling a sense of ownership of something that you're not actually a part of. You may buy a ticket to go in a stadium and watch a football game, but you're not a part of the organization. But that's the love of sports, the passion of sports, is that no one has to tell you that it's okay to root for a team, or it's okay to root. From the outside looking in, it can always look like the game was a little too physical, or that it's reveled in physicality. But those who love the sport can sit back and enjoy the complexities of the game. You can sit back and notice that there are formations, things that are happening on the field that isn't necessarily easy on the eyes. You've got to go deeper than the surface to understand the game. You can have a cornerback, it's one of the toughest positions to play on the field, line up opposite of a wide receiver who has all the advantage right there. He's the guy with the forward progress. He's the guy who knows the route that he's running. He's the guy who knows exactly where he wants to be on the field. But my job as a cornerback is to be able to backpedal initially, guard this guy, understand exactly where he's going to make his next move, impede his progress, and be able to do so in a way where I'm impacting the overall play.
Free, how do this physical contact impact the player?
There's a mentality amongst sports players in general, but especially football players, because there's so much intact with the physicality of the game, that players after being retired have experienced traumatic injuries later on in their lives. And the NFL has acknowledged this. 25% of all retired players at some point do experience traumatic injuries to the head. And this is something that the NFL has tried to address in just the last couple of years. And in the last couple of years, just this year, there's going to be a 20% decrease in the amount of injuries that we see, concussions that we see in the game. So it should top out at around 115 this year. The NFL has instituted new rules so that if players are suspected to have had some kind of head injury or concussion on the field, they must immediately leave the field. And after that, and a day later, they have to pass a series of tests before getting back on the field. The NFL has been a very lucrative industry over the years and has only continued to grow from a year-to-year basis. Just last year, they generated over $9 billion. And the commissioner, Roger Goodell, went on record saying that by 2025, he wants to get to the point where the NFL is annually generating $25 billion. So a huge industry, a billion-dollar industry, and they've been able to expand this industry by using digital media, using the internet, using these new media outlets to reach fans. Now fans actually have a way to stay intact with not just their teams, but with other players and teams around the league with fantasy football. So as a fan, you have a chance that when the TV goes off, you don't have to just forget football at that time. You can hop on the internet, on Yahoo or the NFL, log into an NFL fantasy football league, become a part of it, draft your own players for a hypothetical team that you want to put together, and really follow the NFL week to week, statistically, by following the output of each player that you have on your team, and then playing other teams of other teams from the same league that you play.
By the way, do you play football, Free?
I used to play recreational football. That was about it. I never went further than that. But my love for the game has always been well-rooted in my upbringing. So I'm always going to love the game, even though I haven't stepped foot on the field in a competitive form in a long time. So,
thank you, Free, just to come to EBS studio and give us this brief about American football. We really thank you. Okay. Before we finish our program, let me give you a chance to say anything that you want to say, you want to address.
So I would especially like to thank you guys for inviting me I had a great time. Thank you for giving me a platform to explain a little bit about the game of football and help you introduce the game of football to your audience. I'm grateful to have an opportunity to reach out to people of my culture. I'm Ethiopian first, and I love having an opportunity to look into a camera or sit across from someone and you know, really be able to express my passion. So thank you so much for having me here. I'd love to thank the Washington Redskins organization for having me a part of their organization throughout the season. I've been able to see the kind of impact that this organization has had in the community with their community outreach. Just the other day, I did an event, I covered an event, just seeing the kids out there really being grateful at a very young age. You don't learn this as kids, but just being grateful and thanking Redskins or the Redskins organization and thanking some of their partners and thanking some of the players that come out to these events week to week. I've had a chance to really be there and see that firsthand, and it's impacted me. So I've had a great experience with the Washington Redskins, and I thank them for that as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
ተመልካቾቻችን ይህን ፕሮግራም ወደ እናንተ እንድናደርስ ከፍተኛ ገዛ ያደረጉልን የዋሽንግተን ሬድስኪንስ ብሮድካስት ኔትወርክ እንዲሁም ላሪ ማይክል ሲኒየር ቫይስ ፕሬዚደንት የዋሽንግተን ሬድስኪንስ ፍሬወይኒ ጎላን እና ማህሌት ወንድሙን ከፍ ያለ ምስጋናችንን በተመልካቾቻችን ስም እንዲሁም በኢቢኤስ ስፖርት አሜሪካ ዝግጅት ክፍል ስም እናቀርባለን።
ተመልካቾቻችን ቀደም ሲል እንደገለጽንላችሁ በአሁኑ ሰዓት በዚህ በሰሜን አሜሪካ የሜሪላንድ ግዛት የሚገኘው የሬድስኪን ፌዴክስ ስታዲየም ከጨዋታው በኋላ ላይ እንገኛለን። አብዛኛው ተመልካች አሁን ወደ ቤቱ ያመራ ነው የሚገኘው። ጨዋታው በሬድስኪን 27 ለ24 በሆነ ውጤት አሸናፊነት ተጠናቋል። እንግዲህ በጣም ረጅም ሰዓት የፈጀ ጨዋታ ነው። ቀደም ሲል እንደገለጽነው እጅግ በጣም ከፍተኛ ቅዝቃዜና ብርድ ነበር። ይሄን ሁሉ ተቋቁመን ጨዋታውን ተከታትለን ጨርሰን መውጣት ችለናል። ሚሊ እንዴት አገኘው? ደግሞ
አሪፍ ነው ምልህ እንደዚህ ስትመለከተው ይሄን ያህል ህዝብ እዚህ ሜዳ ውስጥ ገብቶ እውነትም ባህላቸው ነው የሚባለው ነገር ትክክለኛ መሆኑን ነው ያየሁት። እንደገና የጨዋታው ህጎችን በተመለከተ ምን ያህል ፊዚካል ኮንታክት እንዳለው ግጭቱ ምን ያህል እንደሆነ ወደ ኋላ መመለስ እንደሌለ ወደፊት ብቻ እንደምትሄድ ውስጥ
ራሱን የቻለ ቡድን ያለው ለመከላከል
11 ይወጣል ሌላ ይገባል። ደጋፊዎችን ስትመለከት በዚህ በኩል የሬድስኪን በዚህ በኩል የኤግልስ የሚል ነገር የለም። እኩል ማሊያ ለብሰ ጎን ለጎን ቁጭ ትላለ። ፍጹም እንትን ነው ጨዋነት አለው። ያው መበሻሸቅ ሊኖር ይችላል ነገር ግን በጣም ሊሚት ያለው ነው። አልፈህ እንትን ማድረግ አይችልም። ስለዚህ በደጋፊ ደረጃ የተለየ ማሊያ ለብሰ ልትቀመጥ ይችላል። ከጎን የዛኛው ቡድን ደጋፊ ሊኖር ይችላል። በዛ ደረጃ ስትመለከተው እጅግ በጣም በቃ እንደ ጥሩ ባህል የተወሰደ ነው ማለት ይችላል።
ብርዱ እንዴት ነው?
እንግዲህ ያው ተመልካቾቻችን እዚህ ይሄ የሬድስኪን ነው። ምክንያቱም በጣም ነው የሚበርደው። ከዜሮ በታች ነው። ቀደም ለመጥቀስ እንደሞከር ነው እጅግ በጣም ይበርዳል። ውስጥም ሲገባ አንዳንድ ተመልካቾች እንዳይሄው ይሄ ብርድ ልብስ ሁሉ ይዘገብተህ ለብሰህ ነው ቶሎ ኮፊ ትጠጣለህ ወጣ ያልክ እንጂ እጅግ በጣም ቀዝቃዛ ነው። ሞቅ የሚያደርግ ነገር ቶሎ ካላልክበት በጣም አስቸጋሪ ነው። ግን ያም ሆኖ ቆንጆ ነበር ማለት እንችላለን።
ተመልካቾቻችን እንግዲህ የሬድስኪንስ እና የፊላዴልፊያ ኤግልስ ከ2 ሰዓት በላይ የፈጀ ወደ 4 ሰዓት የተጠጋ ፉክክራቸውን በሬድስኪንስ አሸናፊነት የተጠናቀቀውን ጨዋታ በተወሰነ ደረጃ ምን እንደሚመስል እንድትከታተሉ እንጋብዛችሁና ከዚህ ከፌዴክስ የሬድስኪን ስቴዲየም እኛ የመጨረሻ ስንብታችንን እናድርግ። እስካሁን ስለተከታተላችሁን ከኛ ጋር ስለነበራችሁ በጣም እናመሰግናለን። ሳምንት በሌላ ዝግጅት እንጠብቃችኋለን። መልካም ጊዜ። ሚሊዮን ባልካቸውና ዳንኤል ጋሻው ነበር። በጋራ ሆነን እንሰናበታለን።
Washington Redskins were an easy mess. Easy game.
Yeah, 3-11, we're 9-5.
Robert Griffin III back in the starting lineup. First start for him since week 12. We go to some of the miscues by the Philadelphia Eagles. There would be several. Cody Parkey, the rookie kicker, missed 2 field goals. That was a 46-yarder right there. A couple plays later now, RG3 gets it.
Like this
is where Willie starts. Now it's the Eagles' ball, 3rd and goal from the 4-yard line. Mark Sanchez to Zach Ertz. So RG3 with a chance to play the hero.
He goes to Pierre Garçon. Short
County's
catch. Big run afterwards. 23-yard pickup.
I don't
flag
agree
on the
with this,
play.
though, Scotty.
Roughing the passer.
You have to stay at the quarterback's head.
I know.
You cannot hit him in the helmet.
He barely tapped him. I wish they'd bring the camera. I'm
Barely
going to show
tapped.
you how hard he hit him, but I'm going to hit you, Willie. He just grazed him like this.
3 roughing the passer penalties today for the Eagles, and then Kai Forbath comes on.
That's the ball game.
26-yarder, and that would be it. 27-24.